So welcome everyone, straight to the making process. So we just took 3 inches downwards. We'll also be taking 3 inches on the side. Our neck is actually 3 by 3. So I'll be using the curve to join both points, and that will actually be our neck curve. I'll be taking the back measurements, then I'll be taking 1 inch also downwards. Then I'll be joining a straight line to the tip of the neck to that point. I'm using mostly broken lines because I just don't want too many lines. That I'll be taking the back measurement. Then after taking the back measurement, I'll be adding my seam allowance. So you can add half, you can add 1 inch, depending on how you want yours to be. So after that, I'll be taking my armhole point from the top, which is 8 inches. So after taking 8 inches on both points, I'll be joining it also with broken line. So basically now I'm taking all my vertical measurements. So my bust point, which is also 10 inches from the initial line upwards. So I'll be taking my half length too, which will also serve as the line I'll be taking my tummy measurement on. So after that, I'll be taking my hip measurement from my tummy line, and I'll be making use of 8 inches from that tummy line. The person I'm actually making this dress for is a slim person. She's not that big, so I'll be basically making use of basic standard measurements, no unnecessary additions. So I'll also be taking the length of the gown I'll be making from that initial line also. So after marking out my points on two different positions, I'll also be joining with a broken line as well. And I'm joining with a broken line because I want what I'll be cutting out to be only what will be with straight lines. So I'll be marking what I'll be turning inwards. So with this, you can decide to mark 2.5, 3. Most times, if you are not actually sure of the length you are using, you can make it as big as possible because you'll be increasing if need be. So I'll be straightening out the lines. The first thing is to straighten out the neck curve. Then I'll be using a straight line to join the shoulder, that is from the point of added sewing allowance to the neck. And after that, I'll be placing my T-square like that. My T-square is at angle 90. So I placed it like that. So I'll take my bust measurement on that line, add my sewing allowance, and also add another half inch. That half inch I added was for ease. When you add half inch for ease, yeah, it actually becomes 2 inches after sewing. So I'll be joining both points like that. So the same measurement was taken on the bust and armhole line. So I'll be marking my tummy measurement, and my tummy measurement was divided by 4. I added half inch for sewing my allowance, and I also added half inch for ease. So for the hip, which I divided by 4 also, I'll be marking on that line. I'll also be adding half inch for seam and half inch for sewing allowance. So I'll be transferring the hip measurement downwards. So the measurements are on the details of the video. If you want to actually see the exact measurements I use, you can check the details of the video. Everything is well explained there. So I'll be joining everything with a broken line because my joining has to be carefully done. If I just use a straight line, everything might just turn up, messed up. So I took 1.5 inch downwards for the back, and that's for the neck of the back. So I joined that curve to the neck too. Then I took 2 inches on the armhole line. Then I made a curve to meet the 2 inches point. So after that, I'll be straightening everything. I'll be cutting that with a straight line. I'm doing all this so the lines will not just be too complicated. So after that, I'll cut off. So what I'm actually cutting off now is the back piece. So it's the back I'll be cutting off with these two. So as you can see, I've cut out the back. So to cut out the front, I'll reduce the neck to that of the 3 inches downwards I took initially. And I've also used it to cut out the front. So we'll go straight to the making process of the sleeveless nature of the gown, and that I'll be dividing the armor point dividing it to 2, then making a curve at the 1 inch point. At that place I divided into 2. Now I'm doing this because the armhole of a sleeveless gown is not actually the same as that of a normal gown, so it has to be a little bit inwards. You can even make it more than what I reduced. So straight to the making process, I'll be dividing the front piece into 2. Now when I did my last video for a button down gown, I didn't actually do it like this. So but for this is another way of making a button down gown. So I divided my front piece into 2. So you can see there was no buttonhole allowance when I was cutting or anything, but you get to see everything now. So after dividing it into 2, I folded this piece to be 1.5 inches wide. So you can see where the whole buttonhole allowance will come into play now. So in doing that, as you can see, I used the back to cover the front, which made the back a little bit longer than the front when I was folding it. So as you can see, it has like a 1/4 inch. It is a 1/4 inch bigger in size than the front part. So when you are folding yours, you just make sure one part is longer than the other part, and the part that is longer will be at the back, because when you are sewing the front, you want it to hold the back as well. So after folding, I'll be placing it inside by 1/2 inch like that. So I placed inside by 1/2 inch, then I'll close up. After closing up, I'll sew on the edge. As you can see, I carefully folded it to make sure that everything aligned, the design on the dress aligned. So I'll sew on the edge like that. So that's for the left part, because you know the left part will contain the buttonhole, so it has to be bigger. Then I folded this one by 1/2 inch. So I'll just now, if you are inserting the right piece inside that folded part, so it will just consume everything, because it's just 1/2 inch, and 1/2 inch is what you are inserting into it. So if you insert 1/2 inch, you'll just be inserting it inside the whole folded piece, so everything will just cover up like that. So after inserting it inside a 1/2 inch folded piece, you also sew on the edge. So I've sewn on the edge of both, so they are all covered now, and I'll be using a pressing iron to press. But before then, I'll be trimming off all the excesses. Then after trimming, I'll be placing the left part to cover the right part by 1 inch. So after the left part has covered the right part by 1 inch, I'll use my needle and thread to hem it at different positions. If you like, you can make your buttonhole and place your buttons at this point, but mine is just hemming. So I'll be placing the back piece on the front piece, and I'll be using the front piece to trim the back piece, because I actually did some trimmings on the front piece after cutting. So I'll be making those trimmings on the back piece from the front piece now. Once again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. So I'll be sewing the shoulder line, and I've done that. So after turning, I'll be taking my neckline. Now my neckline I'm taking now is actually the neckline of the cloth when of the piece when it is covered. So the neck is actually what I want. But now to get my collar measurement, I have to open it up, because the collar measurement will actually be from the beginning of the neckline to the other end of the neckline without using one to cover the other. So after getting my measurements, I'll fold my stay into half of the measurement I got from the neckline. Then I'll mark 3 inches or 3.5 for a slant. Then I'll mark 1 inch upwards. Then from that 3 or 3.5 inches I took, I'll make a curve to the edge. Then I'll take 1 inch all through. So the height of the down part of my collar will be 1 inch. So I'll take 1 inch all through. Then I'll use a broken line or a straight line to join all points. So I'll check again to see if it is half of the total neckline I got, and it is. So after that, I will take 1 inch for the curve. I'll mark my 1 inch, so my curve will stop at that 1 inch. Then I'll make a straight line to join all the points I took initially. And that is actually the down part of my collar. Now I'm taking a curve. You can make yours straight, but one thing about making a curve is when you're up your collar, it doesn't come down. It stands up. So as you fold it together, it will stand up. But if you don't do it like this, it will come down. So now to get the upper part of the collar, you will take the measurement from the 1 inch point you took for the curve from the left side to the other 1 inch point you took for the curve to the right side. That will be where your upper part of your collar will start and end. So for the height of the collar, I'm taking 5 inches. I might decide to reduce it a bit, but I mostly like my collar to be very big if I'm making collar for a female dress. So after taking 5 inches and 2.5 inches, I've made a curve and I've actually cut it out. Now I'll be taking ½ inch backwards. After taking ½ inch backwards, I'll be cutting it out like that. Now that ½ inch backwards is because I don't want the upper part to interfere. So as you can see, I've already attached the down part to the material, and I attached it in a way that everything is ½ inch bigger than the part I attached, and I folded the down part and I sew it. So for the upper part, I attached it to, and everything is ½ inch bigger than what I attached. So I also cut out the back piece for the upper part of the collar, and I'll be sewing on the edge of the stay I attached. And after sewing, I'll be notching, and the notching will actually make it easy for me to turn it outwards. So this is actually a brief way of making a collar. If you don't really get it, you can actually check exclusive videos I made for how to make a shirt collar. So after bringing it out like this and using whatever sharp object you have to bring out the sharp edges, you make a ½ inch stitch all through. After pressing it with your iron, you make a ½ inch stitch all through, and that will actually hold it down permanently. And after doing that, you will use your scissors to make a notch at the center point, because you'll be placing it at the center point of the down part of the collar. Now for the down part of the collar, I also bended the down part by ½ inch also, and I'll be using it to cut out the upper part of the down part of the collar. So I'll cut it all through just like that. Now for the down part of the collar, I've also notched out the center point, so I'll be placing it on the center point of the upper part of the collar in that way. Then I'll be sewing on the edge, just on the edge, just to hold the down and the upper part together, not ½ inch, on the edge. So I'm just sewing it like that just to hold both pieces together. So after sewing it on the edge, I will now place it on the back part of the down piece. After placing it on the back part, that is when I will now sew ½ inch from the shape, from the edge of the shape of the stay I added initially. So after sewing it like that, as you can see, I will now turn it outwards. So in turning it outwards now, the collar is actually ready after a little bit pressing. So after pressing, you just insert it inwards. And mind you, when you were fixing the back part of the down part of the collar, you make sure it is also a quarter inch bigger than the front part, so that when you are sewing it, it will just relax on it. So as you can see, I've already cut out what I'll be using to turn the sleeve in the shape of the armhole, and I've also bended it ½ inch on the side. So this is what I'll be using to turn the armhole. So I'll just place it like that Since I cut it to the shape, then I'll just sew by half inch. After sewing, I'll bend inwards and sew on the tip, and that is that. So after doing that, as you can see, we've done that on both sides, just like I explained. Easy peasy. So as you can see, we've done that on both sides. So the gown is already ready. So the only thing remaining now is just to join the side, join the down line, put your buttonholes and insert your buttons, and everything is ready. So like I said, it's actually a straightforward process. So the down is already folded to the length of the gown. So I'll just sew the side based on the shape, half inch all through. If you remember, we took just half inch for the sewing allowance, and I'll also be making a half inch sewing on the other side like that. Then I'll sew the down line. After sewing the down line, I'll insert my buttons on different positions. So welcome everyone.